Hello, good evening. It's 22 hours GMT and live from the News Hub at Adesawe, Kanda in Accra. This is News at 10. I'm Stephen N.T. Now, the major news highlights for the day. Government intends to establish a national cybersecurity center to oversee cybersecurity operations at the national level. President Akufo-Addo gave the hint at the opening of the National Cybersecurity Week in Accra. The Ghana Securities Industries Association says all is set to launch the energy sector levy bond, which will be traded on the stock market. President of the association, Reginald France, tells TV3 Business the bond, when successfully traded, should see the country's energy debt fully paid. And officials of the Ghana Railway Company have begun investigations into the possible cause of the train derailment at Tesano in Accra. Preliminary investigations have ruled out overspeeding because the train was just leaving a station and traveling about 5 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, 4 passengers who got injured in the accident have been treated and discharged from the Achimota Hospital. Newly installed Gamancha Nitaki Teko has dismissed suggestions that his rise to the Gamancha stool was politically aided. Outdoored at the Kaneshi Palace that has seen several invasions and lockups, the new Gamancha says he's the right person to occupy the stool with the support from the kingmakers. And a group calling itself Committed Grassroots Faithful of the New Patriotic Party is pleading with the party to reinstate suspended General Secretary Kwabena Japong. There being similar pleas from party foot soldiers in the Ashanti and Bono Ahafo regions. And African political leaders, activists and local chiefs have joined forces to commit to ending child marriage in West and Central Africa, the region with the highest child marriage rate in the world. More than a third of girls in the region are married under the age of 18, with a rate over 50% in 6 countries and up to 76% in Niger. The World Bank has said the practice hampers global efforts to reduce poverty and population growth and has negative impacts on women's and children's health, educational achievements and earnings. Those are our major news highlights. Remember, we're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. Right, let's start with our first story. Officials of the Ghana Railway Company have begun investigations into the possible cause of the train derailment at Tesano in Accra. Preliminary investigations, have ruled out overspeeding because the train was just leaving a station and traveling at around 5 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, 4 passengers who got injured in the accident have been treated and discharged from the Achimota Hospital.
The 4 persons who sustained injuries were sent to Achimota Hospital after one of the coaches of the Accra-bound train from Tema derailed at about 7:30 a.m. About 500 passengers were reportedly on board the 6 coaches when it derailed less than 1 kilometer from the main Achimota station. Eyewitnesses say Police personnel from the Tesano division swiftly evacuated the passengers from the coaches. In February 2015, there was a similar train accident also at Tesano involving an Accra-Nsawam bound train where part of the train dislodged from the remaining coach. Member of Parliament for the area, Chairman Tinye Jakon, expressed worry about the frequent derailment of coaches on the stretch and expects services improved.
I think this is really a matter for the Railway Development Ministry to work on. I will follow up at the Railway Ministry to find out what has happened.
The Accra-Tema shuttle serves thousands of commuters to and from the capital on a daily basis. It is one of the most convenient modes of commuting for most people, particularly workers. But the state of the country's rail tracks and even the trains themselves put passengers at risk.
And Ghana's existing rail lines continue to be left at the mercy of encroachers and squatters, threatening the commuter safety in general. Now, TV3 has gathered in its news highlights the challenges facing authorities in the quest to develop a viable rail network. Let's speak to somebody who understands this. And on the telephone lines, we have Jonathan Sam, who is immediate past Vice President, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Good evening, sir. Thank you. We're extremely grateful that you could join us.
You're welcome. Good evening.
So how would you describe the state of our rail system generally?
Generally, I think you would agree with me that railway system in Ghana has been on the decline. It used to have a network of about 947 kilometers. Now the lines which are functional are about 135 kilometers. 135.5 kilometers, representing about 14.5% of what we used to have. So that suggests to everybody that railway has been on the decline. But thankfully, I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel because the government has shown the will to revamp the system. And even though, yes, this has been the story in the past, now we seem to have a dedicated ministry responsible for that. And we only have to rally our support behind them and pray that they get the necessary logistics and funds to revamp the system.
Now, like you rightly said, the rail sector in Ghana has not seen much improvement if you compare that to roads. So how critical do you think the sector's revival will be to Ghana's overall development?
Rail transportation, for that matter, transportation in general, always play a pivotal role in the economy of every nation. There are studies to suggest that the GDP of every nation is directly linked with the level of transport infrastructure development of that nation. So that should suggest to you that the revamping of railway is so critical. Up to this time, I think we've seen traces of improvement in the road sector, the air and the maritime, for that matter, port. But railway has suffered years of neglect from successive government, and I believe it's only prudent that we inject some capital in that area because, in fact, railway is very capital intensive, and to be able to revamp it requires the initial capital outlay is so high. And we need to have that will to do it. If we cannot even do it completely, as we have the plans to extend it to the north, at least it can be done in pieces. For instance, the reconstruction or the revamping of the section, the Eastern Line section from Tema to Buankra, is so key. That project has been on the drawing board for a while. And I believe without efficient or effective railway, that project is going to be a mirage. So we need to have the resources to revamp the system. And I believe you agree with me that once even that stretch of line, Buankra to Tema, is revamped, you can see the rippling effect it's going to have on the economy. It's going to decongest the roads. It's going to decongest our ports. It's going to make business with our neighboring countries very easy. I mean, a lot. a lot. It has a lot of rippling effect on the economy.
Now, talking about this rail development, recently, government announced plans to construct the 84-kilometer rail line that lies between Tema and Akosombo from October this year, sourcing funding from the Exim Bank loan. How critical would this and others yet to be worked on be generally?
I think it's a very laudable project they want to embark on, because we need to improve upon our intermodal system. You know, every mode has its own benefits, or what we call the synergies. So promoting intermodal system would enable the country to exploit all the synergies, and that will inure to the benefit of the country. So I believe if they're able to do that, which I'm sure they should be able to do it, that will really improve that corridor and open up that corridor.
Right. We're grateful, Mr. Sam. Jonathan Sam is the immediate past Vice President of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Away from that, government intends to establish a National Cyber Security Center to oversee cybersecurity operations at the national level. President Akufo-Addo gave the hint at the opening of the National Cyber Security Week in Accra.
The week-long event is to raise awareness of cybercrime trends and to highlight the importance of cybersecurity at all levels. Representatives from the Council of Europe, United Nations and the United States called for a concerted effort across the world in fighting cybercrime. Communications Minister Ursula Owusu-Ekuful noted the ministry will undertake a national cybersecurity assessment to identify cyber vulnerability and propose specific interventions.
This year's celebration would also highlight knowledge and information sharing among the various stakeholders within the cybersecurity ecosystem. And in the light of this, we have brought cybersecurity service providers on board, both local and international, to showcase what they are doing and the services they are providing to contribute towards our cybersecurity and for us to learn from best practices elsewhere.
President Akufo-Addo said government is committed to investing in the fight against cybercrime to ensure the security of the digital space.
It is critical, therefore, that those in charge of protecting our ICT security are well equipped with the knowledge and the expertise to do so. The tools and competencies with which we fight crime must necessarily, therefore, change. We need to train and have a well-equipped corps of cybercrime fighters. But we should go further than that. I dare say it's time to take another look at the qualifications that we require in a policeman, for example. If what we used to define as crime has changed, then we should redefine the crime fighters as well.
The Cybersecurity Week also aims at promoting anti-cybercrime initiatives and to build the capacity of different stakeholders within the cybersecurity ecosystem.
You're still watching and listening to News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda and Accra. If you're listening to us on radio, this is News at 10. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, 3 directors of Governance Watch have jointly petitioned the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, to investigate the Acting Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department, CID, ACP Mami Ya Tiwa Adodankwa. The trio are Stephen Kwabena Etu, Adumako Fred Williams, and Ni Adote Michael. The petition is in their capacity as citizens of the Republic of Ghana. Let's now quickly go on to Skype and speak with one of them, Stephen Kwabena Etu, who is Executive Director of Governance Watch. He's joining us on Skype. Good evening, sir. Thank you. We're grateful that you could join us. So what have the 3 of you decided?
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Basically, our petition is grounded on the audio recording that is in the public domain, which we are all aware of. I think last week, your network spoke with me when we brought out a release having to do with the audio recording that contains the voices of A+ and the ACP Mrs. Stewart Odankwa. And we are much of the belief that that tape recording, as soon as it was released into the public, we were of the view that it had had an effect on the result or the report that the police service originally put out concerning the allegations of corruption and thievery that A+ made against the two deputy chiefs of staff, Asenso Boachi and Abu Jinapo. And at the time we came out with the initial statement, we were of the view that it would be important for the ACP, because she admitted having had a telephone conversation with A+ during the course of the investigations, and except to attempt to claim that portions of the audio recording were doctored. As you and I sit here today, we have no idea which part of the audio recording is doctored. And so we thought that she ought to have taken steps to cause an investigation, because here we are, she's a top-ranking police official in charge of criminal investigations.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean, I wanted to also add a further follow-up question on that. So as you answer, you can consider it. Your statement also said that the conduct of the director, the now substantive acting director, amounts to, and I quote, abuse of power, corruption, and perversion of justice. These are very, very intense, but how so?
Right. In the petition we submitted to SHRAJ today, we added the transcript of the conversation, and portions of it and I will attempt to just paraphrase. She virtually confirmed in the interview, the conversation, that with A+ that the allegations he made concerning corruption, juxtaposing that with the facts they have ascertained on the ground in Korle Bu, were not different. What it means is that she collected data that would prove that indeed the individuals involved in the corruption allegations would have been implicated. But she proceeded again in that same audio recording to say that, meanwhile, the people are your people and we need to manage them to ensure that Korle Bu works. Here we are. This is a top-ranking official who was engaging a complainant, and she holds a higher office and engaging a complainant saying that, look, although we have ascertained facts that wouldn't be too different from what you stated, but we need to manage because the people are your people. She's influencing the complainant then to accept what she is telling him to take.
Right. And you also... Yeah, sorry, continue, yes. Sir.
So based on that, we are saying that clearly, if not because of that engagement she has had with A+, automatically, the report they would have put out would not have been subverted. And the report would have reflected the fact that indeed there was corruption in the case, the allegations he raised. And so that is where we say that she has perversed justice in this instance, where the report would have been massaged and what the reality on the ground ought to have been was not what was reported to us as people of Ghana.
Right. We're grateful, sir, for your time. Thank you very much for joining us. Kwabena Etu is the Director of Governance Watch, and the newly installed Gamanche Nitaki Teko has dismissed suggestions that his rise to the Gamanche stool was politically aided, outdoored at the Kaneshie Palace that has seen several invasions and lockups. The new Gamanche says he is the right person to occupy the stool, with the support from the Kingmakers. My colleague Komla Kluche has the following report.
For several years, the Gamanche's Palace has been under siege following chieftaincy disputes over the legitimacy of claimant, a divided kingdom with one of the longest protracted chieftaincy disputes in the country. The Kingmakers say is free and liberated.
Things went into disarray in the Ghana state. People who actually do not have the spiritual mandate and the mandate of the Ghana people tried to ensure themselves.
Heavily armed policemen fired up for any threat from an opposing faction. The whole palace was under surveillance. The various traditional rites performed in a full glare of the kingmakers who have reposed confidence in the king. In the first public interview, the newly installed ruler took a jab at his opposing factions.
There are several communicable diseases that are affecting our communities, and you sing and talk about the Gazette that was acquired fraudulently. Yes. We appeal to the authorities. Appeal to the authorities to reverse that action, because we have resolved that we are not afraid. We are not. We are not afraid. Politics will not be brought into this reign.
He is resolute. What the Ga State needs is liberation from economic hardship and poverty.
I want to unite the Ga State. By the year 2020, the Ga State will be united, and our resolve will be positive, because by 2020, we should be one of the biggest enterprises on the African continent.
The kingmakers are hopeful the new government will lead a state devoid of political influence, which they believe accounts for the protracted conflict.
Right, indeed, we are not afraid. And that's where we draw the curtains for News at 10. I'm Stephen Enti. Thank you extremely for making time. There's more news at 3news.com. On behalf of the crew here, good night.